What if I told you the biggest obstacle between you and the reality you've been trying to manifest is not some external force, not a lack of effort, and not even the universe withholding anything from you, but something much closer, much more intimate. Your own ego, that little voice in your head that seems so convincing, so rational, so protective, may actually be the very reason things feel stuck. At first it sounds absurd. Why would your own mind, your own identity, block you from the life you desire? Yet when you really look closely, you'll notice a pattern that almost feels like a cruel trick. Each time you try to step into a new level of reality, each time you decide to embody something greater, that voice steps in and whispers, "Be careful, don't get disappointed. What if it doesn't work?" And the more you listen, the further away your manifestation drifts. It's important to understand that this isn't about failure or weakness. In fact, your ego isn't trying to sabotage you in some malicious way. It's trying to protect you. From its perspective, you've survived up until now by staying in the known, by relying on what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is uncomfortable. The ego's job is survival, not expansion. So when you dream bigger, when you decide to align with quantum manifestation, the effortless, merging with a possibility that already exists, it panics. It resists, because stepping into the unknown feels like a threat. But what if that so-called protection is actually the cage? What if the comfort zone is nothing more than a carefully built prison, designed by your own identity to keep you safe yet keeping you small? Think about how many times you've felt the pull to imagine something greater, only to have the thought immediately hijacked by doubt. That instant voice that says, "Who are you to want that?" Or "That's unrealistic." Notice how quickly it shows up, like clockwork, almost as if it's wired into you. That is ego at work, stepping between you and the quantum field where infinite possibilities exist, where manifestation is not a struggle but a natural state of alignment. The reason quantum manifestation feels so simple yet so difficult is precisely because of this invisible filter. Your soul knows that everything is already possible. The quantum field responds to vibration, not effort. You don't need to convince the universe of your worthiness. The universe already mirrors what you are. But the ego doesn't understand vibration. It only understands control, certainty, and predictability. So when you try to surrender into flow, it tightens its grip. When you try to allow, it insists on effort. When you try to believe, it demands proof. Have you ever noticed how manifestation teachings often say, "Just feel it as if it's already done"? On the surface, it sounds easy. Feel joy, gratitude, alignment. But the ego interrupts. That's fake. You don't have it yet. You're lying to yourself. Suddenly, what should feel light becomes heavy. And this is where many people give up. They assume manifestation doesn't work. They say, "I tried, but nothing happened." The truth is, something did happen. Your vibration began to shift, but your ego overpowered the signal, sending static into the field, scrambling the message before it could align. What's fascinating is that the ego doesn't shout. It rarely screams. It works in subtle whispers. Quiet rationalizations that feel so logical you don't even question them. Be realistic. Don't set yourself up for disappointment. You've failed before. These are the phrases that slip in unnoticed, yet they anchor you back into the very reality you're trying to transcend. It's like trying to tune into a clear radio station while another frequency keeps interfering. You think you're sending out clarity, but ego keeps adding static, and the universe is simply reflecting the signal you're actually broadcasting. Imagine for a moment that your life is a movie screen, and you are both the projector and the actor. The ego sits in the booth, deciding which reels get played. You say you want a new script, but ego insists on replaying the old one, because at least it knows how the story ends. To ego, safety lies in repetition, not transformation. But you are not here just to repeat. You are here to expand, to create, to embody possibilities that defy the predictable. The quantum field doesn't care about your past reels. It's waiting for the frequency of the reel you choose now. Here's the subtle twist. The more you fight ego, the stronger it becomes. Resistance feeds it. That's why so many people feel stuck in an endless battle between desire and doubt. They try to crush their ego, silence it, or pretend it doesn't exist. But suppression only makes the voice louder. The key isn't to fight, but to see through it. To recognize the voice's ego, not truth. To observe without identifying. That's when its grip loosens. That's when the static begins to fade. Think of the last time you wanted something deeply, but then found yourself overthinking, analyzing, and questioning until you felt paralyzed. Did you ever wonder, why do I do this to myself? That was not failure. That was ego stepping in, doing its job too well. And the moment you notice it, the game changes. Because once you see the cage, you're no longer trapped unconsciously. Awareness becomes the key that unlocks the door. But here's the paradox that makes this so powerful. Ego is not your enemy. It can become your greatest ally if you learn to see it for what it is. It's like a loyal guard dog that barks every time you step into unfamiliar territory. It thinks it's protecting you from danger, when in reality, it's just protecting you from expansion. And once you recognize the bark, you can calmly reassure it, I see you, but I'm safe. I choose this path anyway. With that shift, the ego softens and your vibration stabilizes. So ask yourself, how many of your so-called blocks are actually just echoes of ego? Repeating the same old script? How many dreams have you delayed because the voice convinced you to wait, to hesitate, to prove yourself first? What if the only thing standing between you and effortless manifestation is the willingness to stop believing that voice? Because the moment you stop identifying with ego, the moment you realize you are more than that voice, you step back into alignment with the quantum field. And in that alignment, manifestation is not a struggle. It's not a game of willpower. It's as natural as breathing. Pause for a moment and imagine, what would happen if you lived just one day, without letting ego's voice run the show? One day of acting as if the possibilities you desired were already available. One day of refusing to doubt the signal you're sending. Can you feel the lightness of that? Can you sense the freedom in bypassing the old static? That glimpse is not imagination, it's alignment. And alignment is all it takes for the quantum field to respond. Which leads us to the most important question. If ego isn't truly you, then who is? Who is the awareness behind the voice? The observer of the thought? The presence that exists before ego speaks? That right there is the real you. And the real you is already aligned with every possibility waiting to unfold. Have you ever wondered why the moment you start to feel like something amazing is about to happen, doubt creeps in almost immediately? It's as if the closer you get to a breakthrough, the louder the inner resistance becomes. That's not coincidence. That's ego doing what it does best, stepping in at the exact point where your vibration starts to shift, just to pull you back into the familiar. It feels like a tug of war between who you've been and who you're becoming. And the truth is, it's not the universe testing you. It's your ego demanding that you stay loyal to the old story. When you think about manifestation, it's easy to imagine it as a linear process. You set an intention, you align with it, and then it shows up. But in practice, the process often feels more like a cycle. You align, then ego resists, then you realign, and the loop repeats. Many people mistake this cycle as failure, when in reality it's simply friction. Ego is rubbing up against your new frequency, trying to create enough resistance to keep you in place. And the more you misinterpret that resistance as proof that it's not working, the stronger ego's grip becomes. Think about a time you felt a surge of confidence after visualizing your dream. Maybe a new opportunity or a relationship you've been calling in. For a moment, everything felt possible. Then almost instantly, your mind chimed in with a story. Don't get too excited. It probably won't last. That single thought was enough to collapse the energy. And suddenly your confidence faded. The opportunity felt distant again. This isn't because manifestation is fragile. It's because the ego is fast. It's trained to interrupt your flow before it becomes stable. But here's the part most people overlook. Resistance is not a stop sign. It's a signal. Every time ego resists, it's confirming that your vibration is shifting into new territory. The very fact that you feel the tension means you're moving beyond what ego considers safe. What if instead of seeing doubt as a block, you started to see it as a marker that you're on the edge of expansion? Imagine how differently you would respond. Instead of giving up, you would recognize doubt as the final hurdle before alignment locks in. Picture a radio again. When you're tuning from one station to another, you don't instantly jump from static to clarity. There's a middle zone, a fuzzy in-between where both stations bleed together. That's exactly what happens in manifestation. Your old frequency overlaps with the new one, creating confusion and tension. Ego interprets that as danger and insists you turn the dial back to the old station. But if you hold steady through the static, eventually the new signal comes in clear. That's the moment your reality begins to reflect the shift. This is why patience and trust are so important. Ego thrives on urgency. It tells you, if it's not here yet, it's not working. But the quantum field doesn't operate on deadlines. It operates on resonance. The vibration you hold consistently becomes the blueprint of what unfolds. And consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means noticing when ego interrupts and gently realigning, again and again until the new signal dominates. Here's a subtle trick that changes everything. When ego says, "This isn't working," you don't argue. You don't fight back. You simply notice it and respond, "Thank you, but I'm choosing differently." That small shift takes you out of battle and into observation, because the moment you argue with ego, you're feeding it energy. But when you observe it without resistance, the voice weakens. Think of it like a fire. If you stop throwing wood on it, eventually it burns out. Consider how many times you've been on the verge of a breakthrough without realizing it. Maybe you wanted to attract a specific opportunity, and just when you felt aligned, unexpected setbacks appeared. Instead of seeing them as signs of alignment and progress, you saw them as proof it wasn't meant to be. And so you stepped back, giving ego exactly what it wanted. Reassurance that the old story was safer. But if you had leaned in just a little longer, you would have discovered that resistance was nothing more than the final clearing. Before manifestation crystallized, the ego loves to disguise resistance as logic. It whispers things like, "This is unrealistic," or "You need to work harder," or "Maybe it's just not your path." These statements sound reasonable, but their timing reveals the truth. They only show up when you're reaching for something bigger. Think about it. When you're settling for the same old patterns, ego is quiet. It doesn't need to interfere because you're already in the comfort zone. The moment you stretch beyond it, ego wakes up and floods you with reasons to stop. Isn't it strange that resistance only comes when you're aiming higher? That alone should tell you something important. You're closer than you think. So how do you navigate this inner clash without letting it derail you? The key is perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this showing me?" Every resistance is a mirror, revealing the exact beliefs and fears that need to dissolve for alignment to stabilize. If the ego screams, "You're not worthy," then worthiness is the vibration you're being invited to embody. If it says, "You'll fail like last time," then trust is the vibration calling you forward. Each challenge is not punishment, but preparation. And here's where the paradox deepens. Ego resistance is proof of progress. The louder the doubt, the greater the shift you're making. It means the old frequency is losing hold. You wouldn't feel the pull if nothing was changing. So what if, instead of shrinking in fear when ego shouts, you smiled and said, "Ah, there it is. Proof I'm moving forward?" That one reframe could turn every obstacle into a sign of growth. Now imagine living your life with that perspective. Each time doubt shows up, you recognize it as a marker of expansion. Each time fear arises, you treat it as a signal that your manifestation is close. How unstoppable would you become if resistance no longer discouraged you, but encouraged you? How quickly would your reality transform if you stopped retreating at the first sign of static and instead leaned in with confidence? Because the truth is, quantum manifestation was never meant to be complicated. The universe is not withholding. The quantum field is not testing you. The only thing standing in the way is the story ego keeps repeating. And the moment you recognize resistance as ego's story, not reality, you reclaim your power to choose. That choice is the bridge between struggle and flow, between hoping and knowing. And once you cross that bridge, everything changes. The static fades, the signal clears, and suddenly, the reality you've been holding in your heart begins to take shape before your eyes. It won't feel forced. It won't feel like hard work. It will feel natural, as if it was always waiting for you. Because the quantum field has been holding your possibilities the entire time. The only question has ever been, will you stay loyal to ego, or will you stay loyal to your expansion? Imagine for a moment that all the static has faded, and you're standing in pure clarity. No inner argument, no second guessing, no tug of war between desire and doubt, just presence, just awareness. In that stillness, the voice of ego is no longer the director of your story. Instead, you've stepped back into the seat of creation, where alignment with the quantum field feels effortless. This is the shift most people chase, but very few allow, because they're so busy fighting the voice that they forget the truth. They are not the voice. They are the awareness behind it. The moment you realize that, something profound happens. You stop being trapped by the old story. You stop believing every thought as if it were truth. And without that grip, your energy changes instantly. Have you ever noticed how light you feel after a moment of pure awareness? When you suddenly see a fear for what it is, just a thought, not reality. That feeling of lightness is alignment. That's what it feels like when ego's grip loosens and the signal becomes clear. Now here's where the magic of manifestation truly begins. The quantum field is like a mirror. It doesn't respond to what you beg for or what you force. It reflects what you are. When ego is in control, what you are is fear, doubt, hesitation. And the mirror reflects that. But when awareness takes the wheel, when you rest in the vibration of clarity, gratitude, and trust, the mirror has no choice but to reflect it back. Suddenly opportunities appear. People cross your path at the right time. Ideas flow without effort. Reality bends to meet the version of you that no longer doubts. It's not that the universe suddenly decides you're worthy. You are always worthy. The only thing that shifted was your willingness to step out of the static. That's why manifestations sometimes feel like they happen out of nowhere. They don't. They happen the moment your energy aligns without interference. One day you're battling resistance, and the next day everything falls into place. The difference isn't luck, it's clarity. Think about how powerful this realization is. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to force the universe to give you what you want. You only need to recognize who you already are. The awareness beyond ego. That awareness has never doubted, never feared, never hesitated. It simply observes. And from that observation flows a natural alignment that doesn't need effort to sustain. This is why quantum manifestation is described as simple, but why so few people truly live it. They keep trying to manifest from ego, when manifestation only flows from presence. So the real practice isn't visualizing harder, affirming louder, or scripting longer. The real practice is noticing when ego speaks and choosing not to identify. It's the art of returning again and again to awareness, until awareness becomes your home base. Imagine how different your life would feel if you could hear ego's doubts but no longer get pulled into them. Imagine moving through your day with an inner calm, knowing the field is always responding to your vibration, and your vibration is always within your choice. That's power. That's freedom. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to force manifestation, manifestation speeds up, because the universe doesn't need your force, it needs your clarity. Think of it like water. If you stir it constantly, the reflection is distorted. But the moment you let it settle, the reflection becomes crystal clear. Your life works the same way. Ego stirs the water with endless worry, analysis, and effort. Awareness lets it settle. And in the stillness, the reality you've been waiting for finally reflects back. Let's take it deeper. If every possibility already exists in the quantum field, then the version of you who has what you desire is already alive right now. That self isn't in the future. It's here, vibrating at a frequency that ego has been blocking. So the question isn't when will it come? The real question is, when will you let yourself align with it? And that alignment happens the instant you stop believing ego's limitations. It can be that fast. Have you ever had a moment where something you wanted for months suddenly clicked into place almost overnight? Maybe it was a chance encounter, a job, or even a breakthrough in your health. At first it seemed random, but deep down you knew it wasn't. That was alignment. That was the quantum field reflecting your vibration once ego stepped aside, even if only for a moment. The good news is you don't have to wait for random moments anymore. You can cultivate that state deliberately, every single day, simply by choosing presence over ego. This doesn't mean you'll never hear the voice of doubt again. Ego will always be there, because it's part of the human experience. But the difference is, it no longer controls you. It becomes background noise, like a radio in another room that you don't bother turning off. You hear it faintly, but it doesn't interrupt your focus. Instead, you're tuned into the frequency of trust, flow, and alignment. And that frequency is where manifestation happens with ease. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you truly lived from that place? If you trusted so deeply that you stopped chasing and started allowing, if you stopped bargaining with the universe and simply remembered that you are already connected to everything you seek? Imagine waking up tomorrow and moving through the day as if your manifestation were already complete. Imagine the confidence, the calm, the certainty that would radiate from you. How quickly would your external world begin to mirror that vibration? Because here's the secret most people never grasp. It's not about getting your manifestation. It's about becoming the version of yourself who already has it. And when you embody that version, reality has no choice but to catch up. The outer always mirrors the inner. So the work isn't enforcing the outer. The work is in softening the inner and releasing ego's grip so the alignment can do what it naturally does. And this is where everything comes full circle. The ego that once felt like your enemy becomes your teacher. Every time it resists, it shows you exactly where you're still holding on. Every time it doubts, it points you toward deeper trust. Every time it whispers you can't, it's handing you the chance to remember that you can. Ego doesn't have to be silenced. It only has to be seen. And once you see it clearly, it no longer blocks the flow of quantum manifestation. It becomes the signal that guides you into alignment. So the next time you hear that voice of resistance, pause. Don't fight it. Don't run from it. Simply notice, smile, and return to presence. Because in that moment of awareness, you're already free. In that moment, you've already stepped back into the frequency of possibility. And from there, manifestation is no longer a struggle. It's no longer a question of if or when. It's simply the natural unfolding of who you truly are. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real reason manifestation feels so mysterious. It was never about learning how to get what you want. It was about remembering that you already are everything you seek. The ego wants to complicate it, but the truth is simple. Align, allow, receive. The rest takes care of itself.